Hey guys, it's Carmela with Equine Helper, and I have Trico here with me today. This is my dog. So today, I wanted to talk about the time my horse fell on me. I know this isn't necessarily a great topic per se, but I think what happened to me and just talking about how I could have avoided it or how I handled it or whatever could help a lot of people. It's probably a fear of many horseback riders, especially mine, since it happened to me and it was pretty terrifying. But I just wanted to talk today and let y'all know my situation was easily avoidable if I had just been more cautious and more careful and kind of thought a little deeper and harder before I did what I did. I was probably about 13 or 14 years old, and I had this horse named Pepper. I still have her. My parents actually have her. She's retired now and lives happily on their property. When we first got her, she was insane and she scared the heck out of me. She was just big, crazy, and she did a lot of scary stuff. So this actually happened when I was finally getting comfortable with her. So what had happened is I took her down to the river where I boarded, and there was a bunch of people who were going down there. I took her down, let her play in the water, and then I decided to go by myself back up to the barn, which was probably like a 10 or 15 minute walk. And so I'm heading back up there, and remember, everyone's down at the river. I finally hit the horse fields and I decide that I'll just get on and ride her back because I didn't want to walk. Luckily I had my helmet. So I climbed on the fence. I went to get on her. I noticed this horse running towards me on the other side of the fence, but I didn't think much of it. So as soon as I swung my leg over her, she just reared straight up. And I remember feeling her hit the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna tip over. And at this point, I slid off the back of her and I hit the ground. And I remember like laying on the ground and looking up in time to see her come down on me. Next thing I know, she's rolled over and she like takes off back to the barn. I guess the way we landed or whatever happened, I didn't break anything, but it shocked me, and I think that's the reason I couldn't get up. I tried to get up and I couldn't, and I thought for sure like, oh my gosh, I broke my back, I broke my legs. So it's actually pretty dramatic. I was laying down there in the field like yelling for someone to help me. They're all down at the river, no one can hear me, so I probably laid there like 20 minutes, and then someone finally came by and they helped me up to the barn where we got Pepper, and then we put her back in the field. All in all, like I said, I wasn't that seriously injured. The only thing that happened is my butt hit the ground when I fell, and then the horse coming down on me, it put like a point in my spine, kind of like scoliosis. So I had to go to the chiropractor for that, but it's all good now. So just looking back, it's kind of an embarrassing story to tell simply because I feel like I could have easily avoided that situation, and then just like the feeling of being stuck down in the field when I'm waiting for someone to come and help me. But it really did. It shocked me and it scared me even more, so for a long time I was like terrified of her. What I learned from the situation is number one, always bring a cell phone with you when you're riding. Always, always, always. Because imagine if that had been any worse and I hadn't been able to get a hold of someone. So always bring your phone with you when you decide to ride. Even when you're riding out with someone, make sure at least one of you has a phone on you. Another thing I learned is that the majority of the time, if a horse is gonna flip over on you, they're gonna be rearing. You know, believe it or not, rearing is very dangerous. If your horse is doing it and you don't know what to do, the first thing I would say is like emergency dismount and get off of them, because that can be equally dangerous situation, you know. If your horse is rearing and you have the ability to think clearly in the situation. Well, going back, so I figured out that one of Pepper's issues was that she reared after this, so I had to learn to control that behavior in her. One thing that my trainer had told me to do is anytime she goes to rear, just turn her head to your side, you know, the one rein stop, bring her nose to your leg. That way, that stops the momentum of her going up, and it makes them step around with their hind end, which is called disengaging the hind end, and that takes the power and the ability for them to rear. If you're in a situation like that, you know, always go for that first, because the one rein stop is like your emergency brake on a horse, basically. And so that was one thing. Another thing, you know, they need to know that rearing is wrong. So if they're rearing, you just need to work the heck out of your horse and make him know that it's wrong. I actually just had a horse do this with me recently. Where, I mean, the horse is a good horse. I think she was just full of herself that day, and she reared straight up. I lunged her, and I lunged her, and I lunged her. I made her work, move her feet, and then I got on her like 20 minutes later, and she was fine. So, you know, horses learn that whatever is going to be the hardest thing, you know, they shouldn't do. So you want to make the wrong thing hard for them to do. So if your horse is a rearer, you know, you can combat that with making them work really hard, and they won't do that. Another thing I learned is always make sure you have a riding buddy. Especially, I don't know, it's one thing to like go around the barn by yourself, but if you're like going out on the trails and people don't really know where you are, then you need to have a riding buddy. Like when I went out with Pepper, no one was with me. They knew I was going back to the barn, they saw me go back, but if they had gone back to the barn first, they wouldn't have known where I was. The last thing I learned is don't give up on your horse. Because there was a while when I was young, I was terrified of Pepper. She freaked me out. But towards the end of her riding career, she was awesome. She was so perfect. I loved riding her. She was just the best ride and very trustworthy. And so even if you have a horse now that seems crazy, like, don't give up on them. Like, keep working with them, keep working at it. I mean, obviously, if you're in danger, that's another thing to consider, but sometimes horses just need a very firm hand and just a very enduring hand that will endure with them and help them work through their issues. So that's what I learned from that whole situation. Once again, I pray that you never have to be in that situation, but if you're in a situation like that, I just want you to know how you can avoid getting seriously injured. Once again, with horses, there's always going to be the risk of injury. So just remember that, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe. You can check us out on Instagram, Equine Helper. And I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. Let us know some of the questions and comments you have, and we appreciate y'all.